Why, hello YouTube. This is Baylor Mage again, and as via popular request, and I do mean popular, we are bringing you the Holy Relic build guide for League starting. Now, there are a few things we want to know right off the bat. One, before you even look at the Path of Buildings. One, Path of Building has absolutely no idea how much damage the build does. I don't know why. I cannot explain why. This was heavily tested last league. I have absolutely no idea why the numbers are so far off, but roughly speaking, as a rough guide, for every 5 million DPS you get in Path of Building, it feels like, and times like, when you time kills in game, it feels like around 30 million DPS. That's the first note. I've chosen not to change any of the Path of Building numbers to reflect what I've actually been experiencing in game, because I don't want to be accused of fudging the numbers. So the Path of Building says whatever the Path of Building says, but it always feels like you get about 30 mil for every 5 mil the Path of Building says. Just so that everyone's aware of that right off the bat, the numbers are going to be a lot lower than they actually feel like in game. It is insanity with the leveling scaling. It's just how it happens. I don't know why. The second thing I need people to know before we get into the Path of Building is that my timeless jewel that I've put in this guide will be grossly overpriced. My timeless jewel that's in this video is only worth 3 to 5 div at most, and that's if the build is popular. Less if it's not meta, which means if you see it at a price higher than that, look for a better jewel. I will show people how to find jewels. We will show you where the other spots they can go are. There are tools for this. Don't worry about it, we'll get to that. But don't just copy the number of my jewel. Whichever one I pick to go in this build will go through the roof in price. It will be not worth it. It's an example of what to do. That being said, this was absolutely my favorite league, not league start. This is absolutely my favorite minion build I think I might have ever played. Insanely smooth, insanely fast for a minion build, decently tanky, insane recovery. Everything about it was great. Automated targeting. It feels more like an attack build than it feels like a minion build, because you're just shield charging or whirling bladesing around, up to you, and throwing glancing steel out and just full screen clearing. This is the only minion build I've played that can do any and all league mechanics, even Legion. Other minion builds struggle with Legion. The only downside is if you're after a build that really feels like a minion build, it isn't this one. This doesn't really feel like a minion build. It feels like a attack build, because that's what you're doing. So how does this work? You'll be seeing a little bit of the gameplay in the background right now. Basically, the alt quality Holy Relic, which is called Summon Holy Relic of Conviction, it does two things differently. It loses its heal, and in place of that adds an extra base Holy Relic, so that the base is 2 instead of 1. And then it causes the nova of damage at the nearest enemy to you instead of from around it. So instead of it pulsing from where the minion is, it pulses from wherever the closest enemy is to you whenever you hit with an attack. That does mean if I hit something on the other side of the screen, it will hit the monster closest to me anyway. It won't just automatically target out there. But when I say closest to me, if the mob right at the edge of the screen is the closest to me, that's where the nova will happen. Because we're triggering these 6 times a second for each Holy Relic, and there are a total of, when we're finished, 3 Holy Relics, that's a lot of triggers. It is full screen clear everywhere all of the time. So that's what Holy Relic does with the alt quality, which is fantastic. And then Lancing Steel of Spraying. What it does is fire at base 10. You can get it to 11, I think. but we'll just say 10. It fires 10 projectiles in a really large cone shape, and anywhere in that cone shape, if there's a mob, it will automatically target it. So it's not quite auto targeting, but it is definitely aim assist. And so it will fire 10 projectiles in sort of a sequence instead of all at once, which is great when you're trying to trigger stuff. All of those go out. If there's only one target, they will all target one target. If there's multiple targets, they will spread out. They will all pierce all targets until they run out of their duration and then return because of returning projectiles. Linked with that, we have Withering Touch and Life Gain on hit. So our recovery is through the roof, and we apply 15 Wither stacks all the time to practically everything instantly. So that's fantastic as well. So we're using a little 4-link, automatic aim assist, ranged, fast trigger to also give us a ton of recovery and also apply Wither basically for free. And then our minions trigger Novas around the targets, just spreading out from us until everything on the screen and everything off the screen is dead. Absolutely fantastic. The downside of this build, you can't level through the campaign as it. So let's jump into the path of building. Right, and over here we have the full path of building. So this is my timeless jewel. This is intentionally an average timeless jewel. I just want to mention that. This is intentionally, it's good, but it's just the middle of the range timeless jewel. It is decent. Please do not pay the exorbitant price for this. It's way too expensive. Everyone sees it in the path of building. They copy that exact one. It's not the one for you. Find a different one. What we're looking for is minion damage. The minion damage is great here. It's really good. You could get one with only one node. It would be fine. Honestly, you could even not use an Elegant Hubris. There are plenty of other timeless jewels that would work in here. The reason I like Elegant Hubris is because it takes all my stat requirements away. And I love that because it just makes it easier for me to gear. We do not have a lot of gearing space in here, but it is entirely possible, and many people did it, to reach the stat requirement, especially the dex requirement, without it. So if you do that and you go and get your 161 dex, then you don't need Elegant Hubris and it doesn't do anything. So on its own. So unless you're getting a decent one here, you could pick any other timeless jewel. You could pick a normal jewel. It doesn't matter, right? So just saying, from here, you could also put one here. The only really important nodes you would lose would be these two life nodes. That's fine. We can make up for that. Or you can also put it down here. This is my least favorite spot for it though, because I actually really think it would be a struggle to go over cannibalistic right now, which is new. I think that would be a struggle, but you could still put it down here. Now, this is the endgame version. It is important to know there are two endgame versions of this that I've got set up. One that doesn't use an enhance and uses ashes instead, and one that uses an enhance and uses a dragon fang instead. As long as you change the items and the skills to go between the two, they're both pretty close to each other. I do think the dragon fang with an enhance is slightly better, but it's also quite often quite a bit more expensive. So if you go for the ashes one, just know that you only need 29% quality for the holy relic. Important breakpoints are all in the written guide. There's a full written guide version of this on PoE Vault. Link will be in the description. That'll be great. Here are your quality breakpoints. This is how much cooldown recovery or quality that you're going to need to reach certain breakpoints. The best feeling ones are 82, which is what I aim for at the end game, or 52. We basically never see 30, and 14 is the one we're going to league start on because we can't really get more than that right away. I do have my list of specters here, but again, full written guide with everything is on the website. All right, so important parts. How do we level and what do we need to swap? So the first thing we're going to do is go to our skills here and go leveling as SRS. So I set all of this up as all of my gem links throughout the campaign. So we're going to start level 1 to 8. Before I go through this, I should let people know this is my favorite way to level because I like to keep my builds as close to the end game style of build that it's going to be as I can. I would rather always level with the skill I was going to play in end game, even if it was a little bit slower. The fastest thing you could do to level this would be level any of the generic Witch, Necromancer spell build starters. The ones that go Armageddon Band and Cremation are pretty good. Obviously DD's dead now, so we're not using that, but like any of those Ignite style or like speed style spell builds that people do, like if you were willing to do that up until Merc Lab and farm Merc Lab a little bit and then respec, that would technically be the fastest way to level. It sounds like too much of a hassle for me for what for someone like me would be the difference between a 6-hour run and a 6.5-hour run. I'd rather take another half hour and just be playing the kind of build I was going to play to begin with. The closest I can get to that was SRS. So that's what I'm going with. So we're going to start off with either Rolling Magma if you're good at it, or Freezing Pulse if you're not good at Rolling Magma. I quite often use Freezing Pulse because it's easier. It is worse, but again, same thing. Fun is more important to me. I'll just take an extra 3 minutes to level through Act 1 and use Freezing Pulse, but Rolling Magma is better. So we got Rolling Magma, and Holy Flame Totem, Combustion, Summon Phantasm, and a Flame Wall if you can fit it in. Frostblink for movement speed. At level 8, 8 is the first time we get Melee Splash. My normal Melee Splash, or my normal SRS links are just SRS added Lightning Melee Splash. Minion damage is decent too, but I think added Lightning in Act 1 feels a lot better. It just seems like more damage. That falls off relatively quickly though, so even usually by Act 2, I've usually got minion damage in instead. Up to you. Holy Flame Totem stays with us for a long time. It's just our way to add combustion and spawn out some phantasms for basically free. Just a single target thing. Your auras are sort of up to you. This is as you get them. So this is from level 8 to 38. So obviously we're going to take a clarity at whatever level we can fit. In Act 2, we're going to get Skitterbots. Skitterbots are great. 15% shock's fantastic. Chilling everything is really nice. And then Dealer's Choice. Anger if you want to deal a lot more damage. Purity of Elements if you just want some resistances and to not get frozen. I have always found this to do enough damage without Anger. So I would just prefer the smoother leveling experience. So I just take Purity of Elements here. But if you're a god gamer and you don't get hit like I do, don't bother with that and take Anger instead. You'll do more damage while leveling. Fantastic. Also, once you can get the setup for a shield, great. We get to shield charge, faster attacks, flame dash. We can just dash and charge everywhere. Then, at level 38, SRS is the only link that changes. This is the important part. If you find at any point that you're feeling a little bit underwhelmed before level 38, that's absolutely fine. I find it good enough, but I also know what level 38 brings, and it's real goddamn important. Unleash. Unleash is the end of all of your problems. If you just have that 4-link, you're pretty much good all the way up until maps. There would be absolutely no reason to change anything here if you didn't want to. However, at Cruel Lab, because we're planning on changing to Holy Relic, our lab order is a little bit different from how a normal SRS build would go. And I'm going to end up here with Unnatural Strength as the second ascendancy. Which means for me that I found I was doing much more damage if right after Cruel Lab I changed into Melee Splash, Chance to Poison, and I've screwed this one up. That is absolutely Unleash. Added Chaos would be the 5th. If you get a 5th link at any point, it would be Added Chaos. So that has been my my thing there. Added Chaos. Quick edit while live on the video. Ignore that. That would be my 4-link. That's been incredibly good. Just doing chance to poison with that little flat and the 50% conversion just did way better for me. It was way better than minion damage. If you feel like you're zooming and you don't want to bother changing, just don't. It's fine. But I found it better, so that's what I'm suggesting. This is also, if you do that, same thing. Our aura or our curse would change to despair instead of, I believe I've got Ellie Weak earlier here. This Ellie Weak could be flammability, but I always do Ellie Weak because I always level in a party, and Ellie Weak is just always better in a party. Also add benefits to added lightning, so just seems easier. Once you change, if you do change into the hybrid poison setup with the chance to poison, anger is no longer as useful as haste. So if you were using a damage aura, you go to haste. If you're like me and you just don't want to get frozen and killed, you're just going to keep purity on. Nothing else changes. Then, anywhere from Cruel Lab onwards, we could change to Holy Relic. Holy Relic can be done at any point past Cruel, but my plan would be to change at Merc Lab. The reason for that is because I'm going to stop at Merc Lab and farm. We do not have to farm Merc Lab for our gems. We just have to farm for any gem we could sell and then buy our gems. So the minimum required things to change: we need Summon Holy Relic of Conviction. We need 14% quality on it. It doesn't need to go to 20. There's no reason for it to go to 20. The difference between 14 and 20 is non-existent. It does not, there's no difference. The next breakpoint is 30% quality. We won't be reaching that for a little while. So 14% quality is needed on that. And then we do not need any quality on anything else. So we just need that one. And then we need the Lancing Steel of Spraying. That also doesn't need quality, although quality is extra projectiles, so it's nice to get eventually. But as a minimum to change, we absolutely don't need it. If we change early enough that we still have mana problems, I have put it in here to remind people, Life Tap can solve all your mana problems. We've got way more recovery than we need from here anyway, so you can either take out Withering Touch and do slightly less damage, which is probably fine, or if you find your clears more than fine, but you want the damage, you could take out Return Projectiles. Either one of those would be fine. My option early would be take out Withering Touch. To be honest, your damage is too high to care. So not having Wither early wouldn't really hurt me. If I need it, I'll do Life Tap there. We really would want a 5-link here. But if you don't have a 5-link and you're still on a 4-link, dropping either Void Manipulation or Minion Damage, whichever one is the one you don't have the color for, is the go. There are 2 other things that we need for the minimum swap, and we put them in here. 3 maps needed to swap. 2 other things we need. One is the Joffrey's Crest. That gives you the +1 to Holy Relic. This essentially makes you do 50% more damage with Holy Relic. This is a tier 4 or tier 5 unique, meaning it's very, very common. In the first 2 or 3 hours of a league, you might find it going for 20C if enough people care, if enough people are running this build, but it will quickly drop to 5 or less. It will not be a big deal to get this. And then you need any fast sword. So we're looking for any at least 1.5 base attack speed or higher sword. You want to hit it with any minion essence, try and get at least 40 to 50% minion damage. And then we need trigger socketed spells craft. We would like to also hit attack speed. The more attack speed you hit, the smoother it'll feel. But that is it. That's the extent of everything you need. The minion damage roll that's guaranteed, attack speed if you can, and a crafted trigger. So that's it. Those 2 items and the 2 gems. The Lancing Seal of Spraying and the 14% Holy Relic of Conviction. From there, you can be Holy Relic the rest of the way. Absolutely fantastic build. The rest of the gear to start with, absolutely not important. We do not have to start with a Dialas. We do not have to start with anything like that. There are a lot of different ways to do the end game of this. You will notice that my end games both use Dialas. I find it really, 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 really strong. It's my favorite for this build, but it's also not even mandatory, not at all. So plenty of ways to do it, but these are the 2 ways I've done it. I'm going to be suggesting Dragon Fang with Enhance as the setup people go for, unless they become deathly expensive. And if they become deathly expensive, just do the Ashes setup instead. It's almost as good. All right, what else is there left? Okay. In custom modifiers, you will see the modifiers for my Animate Guardian. This is for the cheaper version of the Animate Guardian. I've left everything on the cheap end, not the expensive one. You will also see a modifier that says 1000% to attack speed. That is because Path of Building does not understand that Lancing Steel of Spraying hits over a portion of time. It thinks that all 10 projectiles hit at once, which means for the trigger rate, it thinks I need a disgusting amount of attack speed to actually reach the trigger rate. But in reality, it sends all 10 projectiles over about a half a second, of which we attack like 4, 5, 6 times a second. They send it out, pierce through all mobs, and then return. And it's so many hit. You're always hitting the trigger cap. You're always hitting it. So to make that happen, we just put 10,000% attack speed in it. We're not ranking the attack speed here as part of our damage. It doesn't matter. It just is there so that it works properly. That's all. So there's that. There is 2 setups of Animate Guardian gear in here. There's an early setup, which is quite cheap. These are all basically 1C items. This is just any pair of gloves corrupted with despair. Windscreen that are free. This is your starter chest. I'm not even going to attempt to how to say that. Again, 1C helmet gives you 50% increased damage, and Dying Breath, all pretty standard. And then we have the late one, which is far more expensive. This is the Kingmaker, Mark of the Stitched Demon, Garb of the Ephemeral, Southbound with the corruption on it, and then Windscream again. So there's your 2 options for your Animate Guardian. The Path of Building is only set up for the cheap one. That's fine. And over here are the Spectres I chose. They're also in the Path of Building. If you go over to the utility menus and you go to Spectres, you'll see all 3 of them right here. So they're cool. However, there are a ton of other options. These are the 3 Spectres that I went with, but even I'm torn. There are so many good options. We can only get 3, but I've gone with the Naval Officer. I'm hoping these corpses are common enough that they're at least available for like maybe 1 div each. Feels fair. I hope they're not too much more than that. Perfect Naval Officer gives us all 10 fortification, gives us a precision aura. We don't really care about the precision aura. We do care about 10 fortification. The Perfect Warlord is fantastic. Gives us a nice high level vitality. Might be lower this league, but even if it's like a level 15 to 20, it will still be great. It also shares endurance charges, and it just casts Enduring Cry all the time. Endurance charges are great in this build. This is not our only form of generating endurance charges, but it is one of them, and it's quite nice. And the Perfect Forest Tiger just gives us haste and will sometimes give us frenzy charges. It's a little unreliable, that one, for the frenzy charges, but not for the haste. The haste is good. So free haste, free endurance charges, occasional frenzy charges, good vitality, and 10 fortification stacks. Fantastic. The other way we have to generate some charges is I have taken this node down here. We are stationary very, very often, so the armor helps quite a bit. The other things that have happened to this build is we do have 80% chance to block and 78% chance to block spells, so that's pretty cool. Also in this Path of Building, I have spent no tattoos at all, but I can tattoo every stat node away. So depending on what you need during the league, just be aware every single stat node in the entire build. If you're using Supreme Ostentation, you can tattoo the entire tree. So there's plenty more options for defense, especially armor scaling, all sorts of things. haven't invested into them, but you absolutely could. You need none of these stats. All right. That is the whole build. I hope everybody enjoys it. This is one of my favorite, if not my actual favorite minion build ever. I can't believe it got even better this league. I can't believe we got the corpses back. I'm just excited to do this. This is gonna be a great league, guys. That is all I have. I will see everybody next time. Goodbye.